Alright, in this tutorial we are going to go over engine specifics for exports. And in this case we are going to be exporting this to Unity. So at this point we are going to go ahead and set it up for such. So pretty much, since this is a ceiling light, or I'm sorry, a fluorescent light, same thing as in essence, is we want to make sure that this is ready to be put in and plug and play for engine. Mostly for designers, otherwise they complain on where the moving tool is and all kinds of stuff. But since the light is sitting technically above ground, or in this case the ceiling, we need to go ahead and change that. So like we were doing earlier for affecting pivot, is you're going to go over to your hierarchy at the top, affect pivot point, and go ahead and turn on the snap toggle. And of course be sure to make just for quick reference, make sure that when you right click this, go over and select vertex to make sure that you can assign it to a vertices. Go ahead and close out of that and shift it on over to an actual vertices. If you need to kind of zoom in and make sure that you're clicking the right one, is you want to make sure that it is a vertices on the top. So once you've assigned it to that vertices, go ahead and select affect pivot and go ahead and to your Z axis on the bottom hit 0 and then just zero that out, because now the floor is working as a ceiling, so now it is zeroed out to a ceiling perspective. But notice how this is off to the side. You can either leave it depending on the preferences of your team, or you can go to affect pivot and put it back into the center. So at that point we're just going to go over to X, hit 0, into the Y, and input 0 as well. Now it is back into the center and up at the top. So this way it is ready to be utilized inside of Unity for its affect pivot point for the most part. Okay, so there are a couple more steps before we actually do anything else. So at this point, just to make sure that everything is zeroed out correctly and it doesn't have any weird rotational values, there is a specific little tool that I found out about that works wonders. It is a little bit tricky to use, but that's why I'm here, is to walk you through it. So at this point, you're going to go up to the top left, go to Edit, and you'll find Transform Toolbox. Inside of Transform Toolbox, you'll get this little window here that allows you to size R, which is Reset Transform. That's what the X stands for, and that is Transform. So you're going to have your object selected, hit R, and what it is going to do is reset the numerical values of your insets, your rotations, everything. So I recommend doing this before doing this next step, so just make sure that it has been reset. And at this point, everything has been set to a numerical value of 0 for the most part. Now we actually need to set up our axis pivot point to be Y is actually true north, which is in compliance with Unity3D or Unity 5. So you're going to go ahead and select axis pivot, because you can notice Z, this is the big blue arrow, Z is going to be facing up because that is actually the rotational value for the default. But since we're using Unity, we're going to go ahead and change that. So hit E on your keyboard for the rotational value. This way you can rotate your pivot, and you're going to go down to X, highlight the 0, and type in 90, which at that point 90 will rotate the value to where Y is up, where Z used to be. This is what is going to set apart, and your designers will truly love you when you do this. Otherwise, you're probably going to be forced to go back and redo it. Or they have to do it manually, and they don't like that. So once you've set your Y value to north, go ahead and hit Affect Pivot Only. Now this asset is ready to be exported out. So there are a couple other more steps. So you need to actually be sure to save, as always. And actually need to rename this real quick to fluorescent light, so we have a name for the model. I went against my cardinal rule, always name everything. And then we'll just go ahead and save that one more time, and you have have it saved to your file ports. And then we are going to export all. You can export individual selected assets inside of this. So if you were working with a scene and you need to export, say, like a door or a table or something that you built in the scene, you can select that just by hitting select full asset, and then you can go in and hit go to export, hover over it, don't click it, and then export selected for that option. Then you be able to name it and so on and so forth. But in this case, we just want to export the entire scene, so we're just going to click export. And at this point, it is going. I'm going to move this off, is because for business sakes, we're going to. I'm going to save it to where I need to save it. And real quickly. There. Okay. So I'm going to save it to that, and I'm going to replace it. And at this point, you get multiple options for your export once you've clicked Save to your target location. You want to click Smoothing Groups and pretty much anything else that you want to transfer over. Turbosmooth, if you used it, I don't use Turbosmooth. It just creates geometry you don't need for the most part, unless you're doing something rather sophisticated, and that's up to personal preference. And preserve edge orientation, so on and so forth. Dummies and bones, but we're not doing any animations or anything like that. Animations, you can click either you want to export animations, but there were no animations, so it won't save it regardless. Cameras, lights, embedded media, for if you're doing multimedia kind of stuff, but in this point, we're not. Axis conversion. This is the other one that you're looking for, is an inside of advanced options. If this is not open, just go to advanced options, and it will give you a submenu, and then you go to axis conversion. So in this case, since we are exporting to Unity, we want to make sure that Y is up. Same thing as if you're exporting to Unreal, you would want to make sure Z is up. Is because that's just the way the orientation is inside of that engine. So in this case, we're doing Y is up. And then once you've done, just go ahead and click OK. And at that point, it is ready to be exported as an FBX into Substance Painter as well as to Engine. And at that point, this will conclude our tutorial for engine specifics on export.